Welcome all. So, continuing on our beginners learning Blazor, I'll be doing the part 2 today, and I will take up data binding and we'll start with what is one-way binding. So, outcomes is that in this lecture we shall discuss the concept of one-way binding in Blazor and build a one-way razor component in Blazor that increments a counter on a button click and toggles between two messages with different styles on a paragraph. So in one-way binding, it updates to the value that a control has is unidirectional or flows in one way. That means in one way means that supposing I am going to update a label dynamically, which updates a contained text through code, and that is an example of a one-way binding. To render a label with updated text dynamically is an example of one-way binding. In Blazor, one-way binding could be in response to the triggering of an event by the user, such as a button click, which is very common, which we have seen in Get Started with Blazor or in the to-do list, that we have seen that on the click event of a button, a function or a method, C# method was called, and which has update something, which has updated a label or a text or a paragraph. That is the common one-way binding concept in Blazor. So one-way binding will modify the value of the label as discussed above, as the user will not be able to do so directly. Okay, so now we will be flipping over to Visual Studio, but before that, this is the sequence of events in one-way binding. That event is triggered by a user where a value gets updated. Say for the label text property gets updated and the updated value is rendered or shown. Now we will flip over to the Visual Studio. Now I have switched over to Visual Studio 2019 and we are using the community version. So be aware that you need the latest version of Visual Studio community, and I am using version 16.3.2, which is enough for building the Blazor application. So click on OK, and then I will start with a file, new project. Now I've got this Blazor template, and I click on next, and I will give it a name, data binding app, data binding demo, or data binding app, whatever you feel appropriate in your circumstances. And I put the location prior and click on create. So I have now this wizard create a new Blazor app, and which gives me two templates, one the Blazor server app and another is the Blazor WebAssembly app. And you have the choice of having it ASP.NET Core hosted. So I will click on Blazor WebAssembly app and I will keep it unchecked, and it will give me the same result. So I had a good discussion about how the Blazor WebAssembly app is hosted. So please look into that video, and then I will click create, and the project is created for me, data binding demo. So on this pages directory, I've got counter.razor and fetch data and index.razor. These are the three components that we have seen in one of the earlier tutorials. So what I will do is I will right click on the pages directory and click on add new item, and I will create a razor component, and I will call this as one-way data binding. So it will create a razor page for me where I can code. Okay, so this page is created for me. Now at the top there needs to be a @page directive. So what was the convention? The routing was, it starts with a / and then say one way binding. Okay, same name that I put for this component. All right, now what I have to do is in the shared directory, I've got this nav menu and I'll create another navigation link. So I'll just copy one of these, Control C, and then just paste it over there, and I can make it counter, or you can say, oh, counter is already there. So one way binding, and then href is, this is one-way binding. Let's just copy it. That is the navigation link created for me. Okay, now next is on this code, I will just push it down. I'll start writing the code in a bit. The first is I will create a button. So button, and on the click event of this button, on click on, just double click this, call a function that I will call increment count. The function is yet to be written, so we'll come to that in a bit. So increment count, and what it does, first of all, the name of this button, increase count. Okay, and that is not here, so that's why it is protesting. So we'll come to that, not a problem. Let's first get to the Razor code section. So I'll create a paragraph, and within the end paragraph I will put a counter, which is bound to the count variable. That's also not there. Okay, so I will come to that also in a bit. And then let's first complete this code block where all the C# code sits. So it's a private int count get set equals 1. It's a private property. Okay, and then I could make it, just copy this one just for the sake of saving time. Copy and then paste. I need a couple of more properties, and then I will customize these properties. Okay, just in a bit, bear with me please. So this one will be a boolean is warning, and get set, it's the starting value is true. It's set as true. Okay, so, and then there is a string which will use a property called background to change. We'll see in a bit of a time. It will change the style, and is initially set as red. Okay, that string is set to red, and there is a, finally this changes to a list type, and that's also an integer, list of integer, and it's called numbers get set equals. So I will initialize it with a new list of integer, and then it's start up with 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. So there are 5 numbers in that list to begin with. So that's the code part of it. but it's as yet not complete. So I'll have to create this increment count method. So I'll create a private void increment count, and what this increment count does is it actually increases the count property increments, and then that is warning variable boolean is toggled to not is warning. If it is warning, if it is true, it becomes false. Okay, and then the background comes to the fore. Background is assigned background equals red. I'll interpret that in a second. So what that means is this background property is assigned red if it is red, it becomes blue. If it is not red, then it becomes red. Okay. Now, final line of code is numbers. So that list of numbers, you are just calling the add method of that list, numbers.add. What you're going to do is you'll bring the maximum numbers, numbers.max. There's a max method. So add to the maximum value of number 1. Okay. So add 1 to the maximum value of this number. So my code is already set. Now all I need to do is to put a block here below this paragraph that has the counter, and I'll put an if statement. If is warning, if is warning boolean is true, then do something else. That is the else block, else do something else. Okay, so what it does is that there is a paragraph I'll initialize p and end p, but this paragraph will be styled for the sake of fun, for the sake of making it interesting. So I'll put an inline style. So background color is filled from at background, that at background property, this one, and then this semicolon, and then the next property is this one will be actually, this is not add background, but this will be red to start with. Okay, and I'll put some more properties over here before it closes. This padding, what is the padding? Padding is, let's see, it is 5 pixel, and then another property color, that is the font color. Color is white because I'm going to make the background as red, so font color is ideally white is a good option. All right, so this is a warning. That is all is written in a paragraph. This is a warning. Okay, and then copy this over. Paste it and change it. Now here, this background color takes the property, the value from the background property, and color is white. Again, the padding is 5 pixels, and this time this is just a message, ordinary message, not a warning. Okay, and it will come up with another color. That's the intention, right? And then finally I will show an increment of counter. I can stop over here, but it is better if you are able to do something increment count. So if you can see the number incrementing, that will be great. Okay, so where does the number get written? So in an unordered list, I'll put a for each loop. So for each tab. So it gives the template for me. It creates the code snippet. So for each var number, let's say in numbers is the list of integers. Okay, integer list. So for each var number in numbers, all you do is write that number. This is one, but put it inside a list item. Okay, so just copy it. All right, so I'm done. Now let's run this application. So Control F5. So the application has come up. So I will click on one-way binding. Increase the counter has got an initial value of 1, and this is a warning. Increase count, this is a message. So increase count, again it toggles between the warning and the message. So paragraph style also changes, and it gives a count. Count keeps on incrementing. So this is known as one-way binding. So in this lecture we have inspected what is one-way binding in Blazor, and we have actually seen through the code how the one-way binding is implemented through Visual Studio.